Hi, this is Suchi, and today we will talk about loops in Python. So basically, why we use loops in our any programming language? To repeat some sort of statements, some sort of instructions multiple times. And we also need to specify some condition based on which the repetition will exit or come to an end. So in Python, we have two loops. One is for loop and another is while loop. And again, we can nest multiple loops together to implement our logics. So nested loop is also allowed in Python. Now, let's look one by one. Let's look into for loop. So how we can use for loop? For loop is used to iterate over any iterable variable. So let's say a string, a list, tuple, set, dictionary, and any other variable which can be iterated through. Even a range we can iterate through, so we can use loops to iterate through a range. So let's start with the range first. Let me show you. So for example, the range, in range we can specify a series of numbers. So we can say for and then some variable name, let's say element or maybe I, which is very famous. We generally use I to iterate through loop, and where I indicates the item. Then we have to write in and then whatever variable we want to iterate through. So it can be a range. Let's say I want to print the numbers from 5 to 10. So what I can do is the range will start from 5. It will stop before 11. So it will print 5 to 10. Now, if I add a print statement here, where I will be printed. So here you can see we will be able to print 5 to 10 here. Similarly, if we want to skip maybe 6, 8, 10, and we just want 5, 7, 9, the alternative elements, as you already know about the range, we can also add the step size here. So it will jump. It will jump 2 steps every time. So we can see 5, 7, 9 here. Similarly, we can iterate through a string also. How? Let us look into it. Let me add some string here. We can also have a variable and we can iterate through that. But for the time being, I am just adding this. So let's say hello world. This is the string I want to iterate through. And I want to print it. So as you can see, we can print it easily. And as you already know that print by default adds a new line at the end. So if we add the end character as something else instead of new line, we can see the change here. So we can add multiple characters as well. We can add any substring here, which we want as a separator of each characters. So that's how we can change the printing format. Now, what we were discussing is the for loop. So you can see easily that for I in this particular string. So what I will take out individual characters one by one in every iteration. Now we can do the same thing for list, dictionary, tuple, everything. So here, let me show you for list. It will be similar. List, tuple, set, everything will be similar. So let me have a list here. So we can have randomly anything. And we can see every element has been printed here one by one. So this is how we can iterate through a list as well. Instead of a list, we can have tuple here, set here, everything will work similarly. Now, what about the index number? If I want to get this index number, let's say what is the index number of this particular item, or what is the index number of this particular item? How I will get that? So there is one option I'll show you. Here, let's say I'm doing it for a list. Let me have. So we can do this instead of having the list entirely here. We can also add a variable where I can add this, and we can do this as well. So this will be same. This will behave similarly. So the same thing we can do. Now what we want the item, we want the index number as well. So what we can do is, there is one method, enumerate. What enumerate will do? Enumerate will return the index as well as the item. So what I can write here, index comma item, and I can see the index, and let me add some delimiter here, and then I can print the item as well. So here you can see the index number is being printed as well as the item number. So we can easily get the index with the help of enumerate method. Now, instead of using entire list over here, we can also add this variable. So we can have this variable here. This will behave in the similar manner. So this is how we can iterate through a list. Now let me show you how we will iterate through a dictionary. So in case of dictionary, let me add a dictionary here. So just imagine there is a dictionary, this one. And what will happen if we look over this my dict? What will happen? So let us see what happens. We will print this I, and you can see the keys are going to be printed. So here you can see only the keys are being printed over here. So if we have a dictionary and if we look over it just using the dictionary variable name, only the keys will be printed. Now how we will, but how else we can access the keys? Instead of doing this, we can also write mydict.keys, as you already know that keys will return the list of keys in the dictionary. So we can also do this. Now how we will get the values? So to get the values, again, we have the values here. So we will use this values method and we will get the values. But what if at the same time we want to get the values as well as the keys? So then you might remember that we have discussed about the dictionary items method. So if we say items here, so here you will be able to see that I is a tuple which contains both the key and the item, the key and the value. So here you can see the key and the value both are present here. So either we can do this, or what we can do, as you know, we can unpack the tuples. Two or multiple values in a tuple, we can unpack it. Even for a single value available in a tuple, we can unpack it. So how we can unpack a tuple? Let's say we have a tuple T1, which is having multiple values. Okay, so we have multiple values in a tuple. Let us print the T1 here. So T1 is a tuple. Now what I can do is, we have 4 values in a tuple. So what I can do, I can add A1. I can add 4 variables here. And I can add T1 here. So what will happen is, the first value will be assigned to V1. The second value will be assigned to V2. The third value will be assigned to V3. And the fourth value will be assigned to V4. So after doing this, we can just check V1 is 545. If we check the V2, it should be 876. Similarly, V3, we can see the third value is coming here and the V4 will have 90. So this is how we can unpack a tuple. Now, how is it relevant here in our situation? So what items is returning us? So mydict.items is returning a list of tuples only. So let me just print this part. Here you can see we have a list of tuples here. This is the data type items. And if we check individual items, so if we convert it into a list, we can see this thing. So this is a list of tuples now. If we check the A of 0, so the 0th element we can check. This is a tuple. And how we can unpack this tuple? Simply by adding two variables, let's say V1, V2, and we can say A of 0. We can easily unpack this tuple. How? We can see if we print V1, it will be name, and V2, it will be Suchi. So now you can understand easily that we can unpack a single tuple into multiple variables based on the length of the tuple. Now, here, as you already know, for a dictionary, each tuple will have 2 elements. So in case of dictionary, you already know that each tuple will have 2 elements. One is the key and another is the value. So in that case, we can say key value in mydict.items. And then we can print key here and the value here. And it will give us a similar result. So we can see key and the value has been unpacked into these 2 variables. So this is the way how we can iterate through a dictionary. So this is more or less all about for loops. Now let us look into while loop. How while loop works. In while loop, we just add while and then the condition, and until and unless this condition is dissatisfied, the while loop will keep continuing. So while this condition is true, whatever statements we write under this loop, it will keep executing those particular statements. So like that, we can have a while loop. Now, what can we do here? Let us look into this while loop, how we can actually do what we have done with for loop at the beginning. So what we did, we printed 5 to 10, the numbers from 5 to 10. So how can we do that in while with the help of while loop? So we can say n equal to, we can say I equal 5, and then what we can say here is I less than till I less than 11. What should it do? Print I. And then increment I by 1. So this will do. Now what happens is, if we want to skip the 6, 8 and 10 that we have done earlier, then we just need to change this increment to 2. So as we can see here, whatever we expected, we are getting now. Similarly, if we want to iterate through any iterable variable, that also we can do with while loop. How? Let's say we have a string here. And we will start the I from 0 because the variable's index starts from 0. And then what we will write is while I is less than length of st1, keep doing it. Keep doing what? Print I and then I plus equal 1. So what will happen? Print st of I, st1 of I, and then I will be getting incremented. So what will happen here? You can see we are able to iterate through each and every element of this string. Now here we do not need any enumerate because we can easily print I here as the index is I. So here you can see we can simply print I. So I is the index and we are taking out the value at that index using the variable name of this index notation. So this is how we can easily use a while loop. So that's it for today, guys. Keep implementing and thank you for watching.